This is Christopher Moldong, and I am an author. Today, I'll be reviewing the first three volumes of the Basara Manga series, which is one of my favorite manga series out there. It has adventure, romance, comedy, just great characters, um, really great story, really great plot. Just everything you like in your stories, this has it. One of the best series out there. If you haven't read the manga series, try and find it. It's by Viz Media. It is real, or brought out by Viz Media. It's just really good. You can check out my author's website at www.chrismoldon.com, and you can also buy some of my works, starting with my first novel, a fantasy adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on my author's website at www.chrismoldon.com on PDF format, or if you have an ebook reader such as a Kindle, you can buy it on Amazon.com for $4.99. Also, for just $1.99 from my author's website or on Amazon.com, you can buy some of my short stories and short story collections, starting with the fantasy horror short story, The Land of the Wooden Statues, which I'm currently trying to make into a novel. My horror collection, which is a compilation of 3 of my gothic horror short stories, and my fantasy fable collection, which is a compilation of 4 of my fantasy fable short stories. Um, so uh, the way that this will work is that I will be doing a recap of a volume, and then I'll give my thoughts and ideas about the volume afterwards. Just to warn you, there will have spoilers. I do put a pretty long and detailed recap, so if you don't want spoilers, I definitely recommend to read this book, to read this manga series before listening to this review. You can also follow me on Twitter and like my author's page on Facebook. Links to all of these will be provided on the description. So, Volume 1 of Basara. So, the definition of Basara is a free but noble spirit who disavows established authority and rejects the restrictions of convention. The first page shows 2 babies with the byline, "This is a child of destiny," declared the prophet Nagi on the day we were born. A little girl named Sarasa and a boy named Makoto are in the desert, with Sarasa just kind of looking around, and a man named Kaku catches her. Sarasa reveals that her brother Tatra is the boy of destiny, and then a blind man named Nagi, he kind of like walks up to them and tells Sarasa that they all care about her, and not just Tatra. Nagi then reveals that in the early 21st century, some great catastrophe halted the advance of civilization. So, and also, it's apparently both Sarasa and Tatra's 12th birthday, and they both look the same, despite one being a boy and one being a girl. So, back at their home village of Bayako Village, they have a coming-of-age ceremony for Tatra, where they present him with the Bayako sword. With the Bayako sword put back into its holster, Sarasa tries to touch it, but her father slaps her and reprimands her for trying to touch it. He even says no female hand will defile it, which, if you've read it, that's gonna come back to. It's a bit ironic that he says that, pretty much. So after she gets slapped, Sarasa runs into the desert, and Kaku chases after her. And then Sarasa sees torches and soldiers on horseback dressed in red. She observes that their leader does not look much older than her. Kaku catches up to her, and that scares her off to run away, kind of towards the direction of where the soldiers are like marching through. She runs into them, and one of them slashes Kaku as he tries to protect Sarasa, and then the leader orders to kill them. So a robed man with an owl tries to negotiate with the leader, but he slashes his eye out. And then he introduces himself as Agaha the butterfly. So one of the leader's men, Asho, is introduced as he advises the leader that showing mercy to Agaha may have been dangerous. Agaha approaches Sarasa thinking that she is the child of destiny, but Sarasa tells him that is her brother. When they get back to the village, they're told that the Red Army attacked and that Makoto, her friend from like earlier, sacrificed his life saying that he is Tatra. So they jump 3 years later. They show Sarasa helping Nagi to study crops. That night, the Red Army attacks them again. 3 years later, demanding for the Bayako sword and the Child of Destiny, finding out that Makoto was just an imposter. One of the Red King's men, General Kazan, kills Tatara and takes his head. So he cuts his head off and just takes it with him. I mean, this book is vicious, by the way, just to tell you. And then the Red King, who's obviously the leader of this army, kills Sarasa's father. So as they try to evacuate the village, Sarasa cuts off her hair and assumes the identity of Tatara. They look the same. Obviously, they don't have the same voice, but it's enough. Nagi proclaims that Tatara was the sacrifice and that Sarasa is the child of destiny. The village elder, who Sarasa refers to as Grandpa, comes up with a plan to obliterate all records of communication with other villagers and to destroy Tatra's corpse as well by blowing up the mountain near the village with the explosives that were placed there. Sarasa, as Tatra, offers herself to ride out at front and distract the soldiers. She has to ride out on her brother's horse Yato, who doesn't necessarily like her. Agaha, he comes around the village and helps with the villagers' escape. He initially actually helps Nagi, because Nagi was being attacked. Agaha comes, attacks the person attacking Nagi, and he actually thought that Nagi was a woman. So Tatra rides out, makes that distraction and whatnot, and then General Kazan questions whose head that he has, and Asho mentioned that Tatra has a twin sister. The Red King then tells the troops to retreat and has figured out that Tatra is nothing more than a decoy. The villagers destroy the mountain and it just swallows up the village. Had the order to retreat come later, they would have all died actually. Asho mentions that the Red King was also once called the Boy of Destiny by prophets, and the Red King declares that Tatra's head will be on display at a place called Lighthouse Fort, which is a former sports coliseum, which is a round fortress that's shaped like a mortar. They put Tatra's head along with the Beheko sword on display on a table. General Kazan dares anyone who claims to be the real Tatra to take back the Beheko sword. Then Sarasa asks Agaha to get her 1,000 cows, and all the villagers pretty much help pay for it. So a stampede of cows come into Lighthouse Fort with Sarasa hiding in the stampede. She takes back the Bayako sword, but the Red King shoots her somewhere below her left armpit with an arrow. Undeterred, Tatra escapes underneath a cow, and then we're introduced to and then they tend to Tatra's wounds in a tent. So we're introduced to Yunoka, who was in love with Tatra, along with some of the younger villagers, and they decide to go as messengers to a place called Ichiori Valley. During this time, Agha reveals that a prophet once told him that he'd meet a woman worth dying for. He hasn't met that person yet, or maybe he has, who knows. So the village elder tells Tatra the current situation of Japan, as pretty much he's tending to like Sarasa's wounds, and then like Sarasa wants to hear a story, so he's telling her the current situation of Japan, and it's important for like the reader to know it too, that different regions are ruled by the king's son. In the north at Shikoku, the Black King is taking a stand against his father. The east in Seiran is ruled by the Blue King. In Kyoto, the White King detests war and secludes himself at Mount Hiei. And in the south in Suo is ruled by the Red King. By the Red King, excuse me. Sarasa goes and heals her wounds at a hot springs. So a man with a horse comes into the hot springs with Sarasa naked inside of one of the hot springs. Um, he tries to make a move on her. Sarasa punches him. He introduces himself as Shuri, and she introduces herself as Sarasa. Shuri asks if she will be at the hot springs tomorrow night. She goes to the hot springs the next night, and Sarasa gives Shuri herbs for his horse, because Shuri kind of went to the hot springs to like heal his horse. Sarasa tells Shuri that she wants revenge on the people who killed her family, and then Shuri steals Sarasa's first kiss. They leave, and it is revealed that Shuri is actually the Red King. And of course, Sarasa is Tatara. Oh, it's so amazing. Like, I mean, you could kind of guess that was the case, but like, actually, like, seeing it play out and whatnot, it's oh my god, it's like it's amazing. They're like bitter enemies, right there. The person she wants to get revenge on is right there. This guy Shuri, who is not, she doesn't know is a Red King. So back at the Red King's at the palace, I believe. The Red King is informed that they gathered 100 people for labor for the king, and that survivors of the Bayako village are among them. We're introduced to Hisha. He is pretty much the runner slash messenger, similar to like in Greek mytho or marathon from like not mythology but Greek history and whatnot. But Hisha from Ichiori Valley is introduced and informs Tatra that Yunoka has been captured. Tatra says that she will save them. So at Lighthouse Fort, General Kazan is informed that Tatra's mother is still alive and imprisoned. She tries to kill herself, but when she figures out that Sarasa is still alive, she decides to live. Tatra then travels to save the prisoners. Nagi informs Tatra that she must lead the revolution and overthrow the whole royal family, but she seems apprehensive by that thought because she just wants to get revenge on the Red King. She wasn't really, she wasn't really thinking about like saving all of Japan. She just wanted to like get revenge. So Sarasa goes ahead to find a well and sees Shuri there with his horse. She tells him that he is going to see her enemy. Shuri gives Sarasa an amulet with some sort of seeds inside of it. The village elder tells her that if anything happens, that she should go to Suzaku village on Sakurajima in Kyushu. He mentions that the Bayako sword is one of 4 and that one should be in Suzaku village. He implores her to gather all 4 swords. So Sarasa and Kaku disguise themselves in the procession of the laborers as imprisoned laborers. They wait to pass Tsuyama Gorge where there's a suspension bridge. With the Red King in front of her on a horse, she acts pretty swiftly and just stabs him in the back. General Kazan reveals that the person he killed was simply a double, similar to what the doubles that Tataro seem to have, or like Sarasa and whatnot. So General Kazan tries to strike Tataro with the sword, but Yunoka gets between them and sacrifices her life. Um, Village elder comes forward with a knife and cuts a rope to the suspension bridge. Kaku falls down to gorge, but General Kazan manages to hang onto the bridge. And at the end of the volume, Shuri waits for Sarasa, but she doesn't come. She's like in mourning pretty much because like all these people died because of her. So, my thoughts on volume one. I mean, so much happens in this volume. Uh, it's really hard to figure out where to start. One thing you'll notice about the Basara manga is like it's like a shoujo manga, but it's not really pretty. You know, it's like a lot of people die. Sarasa isn't like this super cute, fluffy, like airheaded or anything like that. Like like um shoujo heroines that you would expect to see that you've seen before. No, she's like kind of this like I want to say somewhat normal person, but she's like really imperfect. She makes rash decisions. Um, she doesn't exactly understand the situation that she's in. Uh, it's like, oh hey, I have to. It's like she has to save all of Japan, just not just kill the Red King. I mean, the whole story of Shuri and Sarasa is just it's tragic and ironic, with both of them and their alternative personas being Tatra and the Red King. I mean, the fact that like obviously like a love is blooming between the two, and like it's weird because they are each other's mortal enemies too at the same time, and it's not like unbelievable too the way they go about it. Just it makes enough sense. um Throughout the story you're gonna find out that like no one actually knows what Tatra looks like as far as the enemies are concerned. They don't know what Tatra looks like, so it's just and Sarasa actually doesn't know what the Red King looks like. So it's it works. The other thing that's interesting is that the author establishes early on that main characters and minor ones will die. Tatara dies. He gets his head cut off. We don't know what happens to Kaku. Maybe he died. Yunoka, who seemed like a minor character, died. The elder of the village seemingly died. So it's like characters look like they're in a lot of story like anime and manga you don't see a lot of the major characters die. No, like in this one right away one of the major characters dies in Tatara. And the story is overall just pretty grim. I mean it's like the odds seem so insurmountable for Tatara. One thing about Sarasa, though, she seems smart and resourceful, but still prone to acting on emotion, as like pretty much when she attacked the fake Red King. The Red King, or Shuri, is just absolutely merciless. Even when he was younger, giving the order to kill young Sarasa just for like running into them. Like, it's like, oh, you ran into my little march. Oh, I will kill them. It's like, wow. Like, this is it's crazy. It's nuts how just there's he seems to really disregard human life in a sense. Like maybe as the Red King. I don't know about Shuri, but as the Red King. And the other thing is that I really like about the story is that there are just some real consequences for the actions of these characters, such as the Red King and Tatra, that they don't seem to realize themselves. It's like, oh, you killed my father. You killed my brother for going against him. And he doesn't understand that, like, I don't think he understands, like, yeah, these people want revenge on you. And Tatra, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go kill the Red King, or like, oh, I'm gonna go try and kill the Red King and act rashly, and it's like, oh, that's not the Red King. You acted too rashly. Now you know Yunoka's gonna die. It's crazy. So we go into volume two. Sarasa with Yato travels by herself to Suo City. At the checkpoint, they are inspecting everyone to find Tatra. She runs into Madame Butterfly and her troop, including Kicho, one of the dancers, who puts her into the troop so she can get past the checkpoint. Sarasa is surprised by how big and beautiful Suo City is. She didn't expect the city to be so rich and wonderful. She gets with a kid from the troop, Mario, into Suo City's market to buy food and dinner or for dinner. Mario pickpockets a soldier, and Sarasa throws fruit at the soldier when the soldier tries to pick on Mario. So a man wearing sunglasses interferes and stops the soldier. He seems to be a higher up guy. So Kicho comes and grabs Sarasa out of there. She knows that she's Tatra and tells her not to draw attention. Kicho reveals herself to be Agaha. There's a lot of cross dressing in this story, by the way. It actually works. Like, there's a reason for it. It's not just so, like, oh, I can draw, the author can draw men as women or women as men. There's a real reason. There's like a sense of disguise doing that. So at the Red Palace, a messenger comes with a message from the king, his father, wanting him to forfeit his lands and return to Kyoto. The messenger will be charged with administering the lands. Then the Red King actually can't hear him, actually can't see him, and he gets the royal messenger killed. So the man with the sunglasses comes along. His name is Shido, and he has a friendly sword fight with the Red King. They seem to be friends, and Shido asks if he could be the one to take care of Tatara. Shido asked Shuri what he did with the olive seeds that he gave him, and Shuri said that he gave them away. So, back with Agaha, we're introduced to Shinbashi, who's the baby owl whose father is Kagero. Like Agaha's owl is Kagero. Kagero has some kids. One of them is Shinbashi. Mario overhears Sarasa and Agaha talking and hears Agaha call her Tatara. Agaha, as Kicho, takes Sarasa to see the ocean for the first time, and she's just absolutely excited to see it. She's never seen it before. Agaha points a foreign ship to Sarasa and that they have been watching Japan for a while, gathering information. He says that they plan to invade the country someday. Agaha takes off his robe and the mark is on his back. Shido shows up and tells Sarasa that it's a brand of a slave. Shido sees that Sarasa is wearing the bag of seeds around her neck as like a necklace. And Shido tells Agaha that he'll be at his performance. Agaha reveals that Shido is the son of the family who owned him, and that he's the Red King's cousin, the Red King's most trusted aide, and that he defends Kyushu. Agaha warns Sarasa that before she takes down the Red King, that she'll probably have to kill Shido. And then elsewhere, Mario tells a vendor that he knows who Tatra is, and the soldier that he pickpocketed overheard him and like takes Mario away. Then elsewhere, back at Madame Butterfly's troop, General Kazan and a group of soldiers come to Madame Butterfly's tents to inspect them, as he's gotten word that they're hiding Tatra. Shido convinces them to search the tents after the show. Kicho grabs Sarasa and tells her that she must perform at the show. And during the performance, Kicho tells Sarasa uh, to just like get out and to go to Kyushu through the Kanmon Tunnel. Apparently, like no ships are being sailed right now because everyone's looking for Tatra. So Sarasa has to go through the Kanmon Tunnel. Sarasa takes Yato and Shinbashi with her, and then elsewhere we see that Shido, he really cleverly interrogates Mario, and Mario reveals that he heard Agaha call Sarasa Tatara. Shido does find it strange, but then he says, "Let's go ask Agaha." Right? So they go back to the Tatara in the Kanmon tunnel, and pretty much like there's all these trials and obstacles. There's like bugs, um, traps. There's a lion, and and whatnot in the Kanmon tunnel. Tatara just uses her resourcefulness and past education with Nagi to get through the tunnel. It's actually like quite intuitive how she gets past things. She's just kind of uses her smarts. She's not particularly skilled or anything, but she's smart and resourceful. So near the end of the tunnel, she meets a very old man, Rasho of Suzaku, who once owned the Suzaku sword. Rasho gives Tatra his ring and tells her to find his family. Then Rasho dies. Rasho was this warrior, and yeah, he dies like right there, seeing that like someone's carrying like one of the great swords and whatnot. In order to get out of the Kanmon tunnel, Tatra, Yato, and Shinbashi swim underwater and eventually reach a beach to Kyushu, but like Tatra is unconscious. Once I'll say he or she, once Tatra awakens, a group of kids show her a flyer saying, "Join Tatra, boy of destiny." Yato allows Sarasa to finally ride him, and then as she's riding, he runs into this kid who claims to be Tatra. Someone mentions that they saw a man named Kaku passing by, as like there's these people that have followed this supposed Tatra, and they're just kind of talking and mentioned the Kaku by name. The boy claiming to be Tatra says that a chief officer of Daizafu wants to talk to Tatra about the future of the country. Back at the Red Palace, a commander tells the Red King that a soldier named Sakaki said that bats came from the Kanmon Tunnel, but the commander didn't feel that it was worth mentioning. The Red King then kills this guy and gets Sakaki promoted. The Red King mentions to General Kazan that he heard that he's keeping a beautiful woman at his house. Most likely, it's Sarasa's mom, and it goes to show that General Kazan has not mentioned uh, Sarasa and Tatra's mom to the Red King, which is, considering how loyal the guy is, it's very interesting. So we go to a scene where Shido and a soldier torture Agaha. They whip his back, trying to. They chain him up and whip his back, trying to get information about Tatra and Sarasa. Uh, the Red King comes in like the room, tells Shido to go to Kyushu where he'll find Tatra. Aga spits at the Red King's face and tries to provoke him, but the Red King just doesn't bite at all. Tatra then confronts a boy who's claiming to be Tatra. Actually, like, it's a funny scene because as he's like peeing, pretty much, she gets her sword and like she doesn't take it out of the sheath and puts it like over his neck, like, and just pretty much interrogates him, asking why he's claiming to be Tatra. Apparently, it's for his sick mom. Shido convinced him to pretend to be Tatra and gather men and go to Daizafu in exchange for medicine for his mother. It turns out that Rasho was the boy's great grandfather, and Tatra gives him Rasho's ring, but tells him that he won't join him in Daizafu. The boy takes the men that joined him to Daizafu, asking for Lord Shido, but they get shot at with arrows, and it turns out that Shido is not there. um, so Tatra rides in with Yato to save the boy, who realizes that like Sarasa or like the person he's been talking to the whole time is the real Tatra. And we find out the boy's name is Hayato. Tatara takes Hayato back home, but his mother already died, and he laments that he left her to die alone. It's so sad, and it really goes to show that once again, the actions that these characters take have real consequences. You pretend to be Tatra, take these men here for medicine, and it's at a price. These guys are dying. You get betrayed. Your mom dies alone. It's pretty grim. Uh, Hayato's mom left him a map to Suzaku village and a letter telling him to beware of the Shoujo clan who betrayed Rasho and took the Suzaku sword. Hayato joins Tatara in his quest, and then Shido also heads to Suzaku. We're introduced to Lady Senju, Shido's fiance. Apparently, Shido has to postpone their wedding so that he could get Tatara. Hisha, this guy's running everywhere. He appears and tells him that ships are running and that Nagi and the others took a ship to Beppu to see the Red Army's battleship. Tatara and Hayato go to Beppu harbor to see the battleship. It's the battleship Crimson. Hayato mentions setting the battleship on fire, but Tatara says no. Tatara then realizes that it'll be a long time before she attacks the Red King again. Sarasu takes Yato and Shinbashi to a hot springs, and Shuri is there. She sees the mark of the slave on Shuri's back, just like the one Aga had. And the hot springs, an assassin shoots an arrow at them, and it grazes Shuri's arm, but the arrow was poisoned. Elsewhere, Senju is scared by an omen, like I think a glass breaks or something. I forgot, like a pitcher broke or something. And then she goes to see Shido in the middle of the night, and they actually get married. So back with Sarasa and Shuri, Sarasa's tending to Shuri, who eventually awakens. Then they go back to Shido and Senju. Apparently they just got married. And Shido tells Senju his history of Shuri, and that Shuri was branded as a slave by his father due to a prophet telling him that he'll bring his father misfortune. The king banishes Shuri from the royal palace and was sent to Shido's father. Shuri and Shido pretty much grew up together, and when Shuri turned 12, the father's name is King Ukon. So King Ukon assigned him the Central Desert. So for 3 years, Shuri let everyone do whatever they wanted. But then after, he let the pus and ooze out, he kills all of those that became corrupt. After that, he had all of Western Japan under his rule. So, after that, they go back to Shuri and Sarasa. Shuri um, is flirting with Sarasa. He gives Sarasa a bird and a bird whistle, wanting her to send him a love letter, and he leaves. At the end of the volume, Hayato and Tatra end up in Sakurajima, but are told that it sank into the sea along with Suzaku Village. So, some thoughts on Volume 2. Wow, there's that Kanmon Tunnel experience, just a real harrowing experience for Sarasa. The fact that she learned from her mistakes shows a real constantly changing protagonist, and that's really cool with Sarasa slash Tatra. It's like she's constantly learning as she progresses in this journey. She's not particularly strong or skilled, but she uses her resourcefulness and education from Nagi to get through different obstacles. It's pretty amazing actually to see that, and it's absolutely believable too in a sense. It's not she's not doing anything super, and she is doing some pretty incredible things, but also what I also like is the characters actually get hurt doing like the cow incident from Volume 1, it's like, oh, Tatra gets shot with an arrow, and it's actually like sick, like in bed, like hurt, like his characters actually like get hurt, like bad too, you know. One theme or idea of the story is this dichotomy, and it exists with all characters. Shido is this really nice guy. He talks to Sarasa and just super nice. He's supposedly friends with Agaha. Then he goes and tortures Agaha for information. He gets Hayato to gather up people who would follow Tataro to kill them. But, like, he's not evil. It's crazy. He's not like an evil man. He just kind of believes in one side of justice. It's like he believes that the Red King will deliver like Japan to like this golden age, more or less. Shuri is the Red King. He kills, but he wants, like, his goal is to make the land beautiful, and even built Suo City in this image of, like, like having this beautiful, city in Japan, and eventually just make all of Japan beautiful. So, like, it's not like he's just evil. I do like Hayato. He is young and foolish, but he's like a likable guy. Seeing his mother die alone was just so sad. And it goes to show that, once again, like, there are real consequences to these characters' actions. You know? Shido also has such a complex relationship with two of the characters, Shuri and Agaha. He greatly admires Shuri and is convinced that he is like the leader to follow. And there's this love-hate relationship between him and Agaha. Shuri's backstory, with his father disowning him, like, it makes him like really sympathetic. It's like, I don't know if it makes him a forgivable character per se, because it's like, dude, you're killing people left and right. I mean, he just kills guys. Like, oh, hey, you didn't believe the bat, so we're, worth mentioning. Die. It's like, this guy like kills with no like remorse. Um, Despite his tough upbringing, though, he's obviously very confident and very determined. Um, Other thing is too, there's they show a lot of Senju, and she comes off like a pretty delicate like character, but she's actually a bit stronger than expected. She has a really sweet relationship with Shido, but like it's really foreboding as well. I mean, she's just convinced that he's gonna die, you know. So on to volume 3. So Tatara and Hayato get caught by some men who use nets on them and just capture them. They are apparently not the Shojo clan or with the Red King, but they're pirates. Their ship is hidden behind a waterfall. And as they're like heading to the ship, they see the death dance where on the bowsprit of the ship, someone who broke the rules fights the captain of the ship with swords. And below them are sharks. The captain wins, and Tatara is told that the captain has never lost the death dance. So, the captain, who is a woman named Chacha, tells them that they are going to be sold as slaves. So we're also introduced to her, what seemingly looks like a right-hand man, possible lover, named Zaki. He's introduced as well. Sarasa reveals herself as Tatara to the captain. Like, she's in a net, and she says, I'm Tatara, pretty much. And that they are looking to retrieve the Suzaku sword, defeat the Shojo clan, eventually defeat the Red Army, and to form an alliance with sympathetic members of the Suzaku village. The captain, Chacha, invites Tatara to have a drinking contest with her. Tatara is told that the Shojo clan may have a fake Suzaku sword. Apparently, the Suzaku sword is the symbol of lordship in Suzaku village. Tatara's head starts spinning from the alcohol. Kaku, he appears and asks if he'd take the challenge for him. So Kaku and Cha-Cha have this drinking challenge. The match turns out to be a draw, but it turns out that Kaku could not hold liquor at all and get sick from it. It was such an amazing scene from Kaku. Like just seeing that, I was just like, I was so just wowed by that like revelation. I was like, wow. Um, I just don't know what to say. It's just such a cool thing, and just shows his like undying loyalty to like Sasura slash Tatra. Sarasa then writes a letter to Shuri and gives it to the parrot to send to Shuri. Then Sarasa challenges Chacha to a death dance with the stakes being that she'll join Tatra if she wins. They fight blindfolded on the bowsprit. So they're fighting, and an earthquake happens, and Sarasa falls. So she's in the water. She apparently stabs a shark and rides it while it jumps in the air. So as it jumps in the air, Sarasa grabs hold of Cha-Cha and brings her into the water to continue fighting. The captain then Cha-Cha then declares that Tatra won. Apparently, the earthquake caused the waterfall to disappear, and the Shoujo clan attacks them, demanding Tatra. Uh, Cha-Cha will not give up Tatra. Like, pretty much Tatra is one of, like, the crew, and Cha-Cha just will not, doesn't even think about giving him up. So, from the land close to them, the Raijin, an armored chariot corps led by Shido, are heading towards the ship. Tatra then offers himself to be captive to the Shoujo clan. So they get on their ship, and pretty much the rest of the pirates overtake that ship from the Shoujo clan. It's a Suzaku ship, and take over the ship. Apparently, some of the villagers of Suzaku are aboard, and Tatra asks not to attack them. Tatra reveals to Cha-Cha that his only motivation is revenge, and Cha-Cha is pleased with his honesty. So, it was good that Tatra wasn't making up some like I want peace or something else. It was just, hey, I want revenge. So on the other side, so the Raijin's coming from land, right? So apparently the Red Navy or the Fujin blocks their way on the water as well. So they just have no way of escaping. Apparently, with Shido, Agaha was brought in to identify Tatra. Shido admits that he counts Agaha as one of his good friends, and Agaha just laughs at that. Agaha says that by bringing the four swords together, it will bring people together and bind them. They're just kind of talking, and it just kind of brought up. So, like, Agaha sends Kagero on his like nightly stroll, and he puts a molasses candy in his mouth. So the Suzaku ship that Tatra is on, and Cha-Cha and all of them, gets sunk. They swim ashore, and Hayato gets caught by one of the shoujos. Kagero comes, and Cha-Cha knows Kagero and realizes that she also knows Agaha. Apparently, Cha-Cha was the one that got the 1,000 cows. So Kagero shows them the candy, and looks like a cannonball with the seal of Suzaku scratched on it. Cha-Cha was told by Agaha in the past that the shoujos may have brought extra cannons for themselves, and that they might be on the ship that they're on, like the main ship that they're on. Tatra says that he'll get the cannon by swimming past the Fujin, and then Tatra also asks Cha-Cha to hold out for 1 hour. They're pretty much in this, like, I don't want to say cave, but it kind of is like this, like, cave area, and they just have to hold out. Kaku tells Tatra that he'll offer his head and claim to be Tatra if he doesn't come back. Cha-Cha tells Zaki to go with Tatra. Zaki tells Tatra that if they don't make it back by an hour, that he'll kill him and take his body to the Red Army. So it's just, I mean, like, Saras is just like, the odds are just like insurmountable here. You have 1 hour, you have the Raijin here, the Fujin here. Zaki wants to kill him if it doesn't happen. It's just it's crazy. I mean, the stakes are just insane for this story. Aga provokes Shido by getting the idea into his head that Sarasa could be Tatra, and that the Red King this whole time is having trouble catching a little girl. Um, Shido doesn't buy it though. So what happens is they're slow going to get onto the ship that the Shoujos are on. So Zaki and Tatra stab a shark and ride underneath it to get past the Fujin. They eventually reach the Suzaku flagship, which is like a floating island. It's huge, and it also acts as a village. Inside the ship, the Shoujos are interrogating Hayato and get his map. There's an X mark on it when it's wet and fades when it dries. They are looking for the Suzaku sword and admit to him that the one they have is a fake. So Zaki and Tatra break into the ship's armory and do find a cannon. Not being able to transport it, though, Tatra decides to fire it right then and there on the ship and starts to fire cannonballs at will at the Fujin fleet. So, as this is happening, Shido thinks about sending a message to Shuri for aid by sending out the battleship Crimson, but then he decides against it for it's needed to protect against foreign invaders, and he doesn't want to trouble Shuri. So, Shido orders the Fujin to retreat and send small ships to sink the Suzaku ship. The Shotos are sneaking away, but Hayato grabs hold of the fake sword, the fake Suzaku sword, and destroys it easily in front of the Suzaku villagers. They also see Hayato wearing Rasho's ring, so pretty much the Suzaku villagers aren't serving the Shoujos anymore. So pretty much as this is all happening, remember like they were supposed to go to Sakurajima, which is like a volcano, and it's in the ocean, but it actually erupts. Uh, So elsewhere, Shuri gets a message that they are being attacked by that Shido and his like Raijin and Fujin are being attacked by cannons, and he contemplates if he should help Shido. Princess Senju comes along, pleads with the Red King to help Shido, and also reveals that they got married. However, Shuri tells her that him helping Shido would make him look shamed in front of his troops. However, the Red King uses the excuse that Sakurajima erupted to go in the Crimson to where Shido is, saying that he wants to see the extent of the damage and to evacuate locals. He also invites Princess Senju to come along. Before they set sail, there's this peddler, like, below, and he just seems really suspicious to Shuri. Then they set sail to Sakurajima. It turns out that the peddler had this cannon and destroyed one of the foreign ships. It's a foreign European Union merchant vessel that has been watching and going past Japan. So they captured the man, and he claims to be one of Tatra's men. Then the foreign Union fleet is heading to Suwo City. The Red King orders to turn the Crimson back towards Suwo City. In the city, General Kazan orders an evacuation, but the citizens beg to help defend Suwo City, and General Kazan agrees. It's actually a pretty touching scene because you actually see General Kazan getting a bit emotional. Seeing that the citizens want to save the city. Suwo City gets attacked, and the Red King orders to attack them back. However, a message comes to the Red King that the Blue King is sending reinforcements and are already close to Suwo City. Hearing this, he tells his soldiers to cease fire. The Red King figures out that it wasn't Tatra, but his brother, the Blue King, that set him up. The peddler is brought in to the Red King as the guy who shot the foreign ship, And then the Red King orders everyone to abandon the Crimson. He ties up the peddler to the top of the ship's mast, and from there he speaks to the foreign army and tells them the truth of the situation. And as an apology, he blows up the battleship Crimson. So the leader of the foreign army decides not to attack them and will talk to them. He also seems to admire the Red King and says that this nation still has its samurai. Pretty cool moment from the Red King, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this guy has some flair for the dramatic, for sure. Shuri's bird comes back to Tatara and tells everyone not to be worried about Sakurajima erupting because like all the Suzakus and everyone are just like totally like worried and whatnot. Uh, Tatara just tells them that he feels that like Sakurajima is actually cheering for them. He sends back so the letter was a hand-drawn autographed self-portrait that from Shuri. It kind of looks like a kid's drawing. At the end of the volume, Shido is informed that the Fujin and Raijin are in bad shape and they retreat. So, some thoughts. Man, that scene with Kaku, with the drinking contest was pretty awesome. He's just such a strong character. What he does for Sarasa is just unbelievable. Um, he's absolutely loyal to her. Uh, and the thing with him not being able to drink yet, you know, do this drinking contest was nothing short of amazing. Cha-Cha's an interesting character because she's like this really strong woman, but it's one that also Sarasa aspires to be. Um, Cha-Cha's loyalty is also pretty admirable. She just would not sell out Tatra once she became like a part of like the crew, and after she won that the death dance, she just wouldn't like when they demanded Tatra. Tatra just would not. The idea of giving Tatra up was not even in her like mind. Zaki, he's a crazy guy. I mean, seriously, what can I say? I mean, it's just like, hey, if we don't make it back in time, I'm going to kill you and send your body to the Red Army. And this guy is a real no nonsense guy. The battleship Crimson just didn't last very long. It's kind of surprising. I thought it would be around longer. What the Red King did with it, though, shows that he's, you know, just one that's really dramatic, one that's willing to make some big sacrifices for like his city and for the country even. It's like, hey, these guys are attacking my city. I love my city. Here's my giant battleship, you know? I'm going to destroy it in front of you just to show you that, like, just to apologize, more or less. The Shoto clan, pretty one-dimensional, they're just evil dudes. There's nothing really special about them. I really like that Tantra went up against Chacha and just didn't give up. It wasn't that like Tantra was any more skilled than Chacha or anything. It's just that, Tantra just has this great amount of resolve to get things done. You know, the other thing with Tantra though is like that when he was using the cannons. I mean, it goes to show that he'll still act impulsively, because we've seen it in the past where Tatra acts impulsively, but, like, in this case, it was the right move. I'm kind of curious about the foreign army. They're pretty interesting. I gotta wonder if they'll play a role later on. It's also just interesting to know that there's, like, this bigger world outside of the world that the story takes place. It's also interesting that like the world outside is far more advanced than the world that of Japan that they live in. And that Fujin and Raijin are just terrifying. The fact that Tadra like could defeat them under these like insurmountable odds shows just her absolute like I say her and his like I'll say his I guess uh her like resourcefulness and just ability to really think on the spot. Once again, it's that Sarasa Celeste Tatra is just outsmarting the enemy more so than being some skilled warrior or anything like that. It's just like, oh, if I do this, you know, I could win and get the upper hand, and that's what happens. So that's it for the manga reviews for Basara volumes 1 through 3. I will have the manga reviews for volumes 4, 5, and 6, hopefully in a week. Please also check out my author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. You can buy some of my works, such as The Mustard Prince and the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 on my author's website or on Amazon.com, and for $1.99 from my author's website or on Amazon.com. You can buy some of my short stories, such as The Land of the Wooden Statues, the Horror Collection, and the Fantasy Fable Collection. So, yeah, that's it for this manga review. Thank you guys very much.